In Welcome to Dragon's Restaurant, the scene of the human-carried bomb shatters all grand narratives of war. A school bag that should have held textbooks and candies is stuffed with cold explosives. A young child is tricked into walking toward the US military security checkpoint. While handlers watch coldly from behind, no one knows whether, in his final step, he still remembers the warmth of that hot risotto at Dragon's Restaurant. We understand this serves plot purposes, yet real-world human-carried bomb attacks are far more horrifying than depicted on screen. Today we will dive deep, just how brutal are real-life human-carried bombings. Today's topic, human-carried bomb. The first generation can be called bomb vests, the most primitive human fireworks. On Middle Eastern battlefields, these vests strapped with TNT and CT4 explosives were crude and brutal. Pull the fuse, and physical annihilation follows. Most of these suicide bombers were young people, brainwashed by extremist ideology. They were indoctrinated with promises of paradise after death, 72 virgins, and pensions for their families. Some were even donated by their own families. Al-Qaeda in Iraq specifically recruited orphans whose parents had perished in war. The oldest was 15, and the youngest merely 9. Between 2007 and 2009, they carried out over 100 suicide attacks, 24 of which were perpetrated by teenagers. These bombers were extremely hard to detect. An ordinary-looking pedestrian could well be a walking bomb. The second generation is the deeply unsettling biological bomb. Explosives are made into capsules and swallowed, or inserted into bodily cavities, such as the rectum and vagina, evading security scanners entirely. This bomb concept is said to draw inspiration from drug smugglers' body packing tactics. If narcotics can be smuggled inside the human body, why not explosives? Thus emerged the deadly combo. Live body smuggling paired with timed detonation. In August 2009, Al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia's most wanted suspect, Al-Asiri, stuffed 1 pound of high-powered explosives into his rectum. He starved himself for 40 hours, then tricked Saudi counter-terrorism, Prince Knife, over the phone, claiming he wanted to surrender. He brazenly passed 2 security checks at the airport and the prince's residence. Once face-to-face with the prince, he detonated himself using a mobile phone. The outcome, the bomber was blown to pieces, while the prince only sustained minor superficial injuries. Weapons experts later analyzed that human tissue absorbed much of the blast wave. Otherwise, the prince would have been killed alongside him. Having tasted success, Al-Qaeda plotted an upgraded version. Surgeons would surgically implant capsule, encased patent inside suicide bombers, and sew the wound shut. For men, implants went near the appendix or buttocks. For women, inside breasts. Much like breast augmentation surgery, once aboard a plane, a syringe would inject a trigger agent to set off the explosion. Even Statova, the artful body scanners could do nothing against these embedded bombs. Yet, the idea came with major technical hurdles. Any accidental early leak would instantly kill the bomber. The third generation is the most heinous child bombers. This is what I least want to talk about today. Yet, it must be told. Terrorists strap explosives onto children, send them into crowds, and detonate the devices remotely, or trick the kids into pressing the trigger themselves. Most of these children are abducted, their families have been murdered, and they are threatened with death if they refuse to comply. Often the children have no idea what they are carrying, still smiling right up until the moment of detonation. Previously, the Islamic State released video footage online, deliberately grooming children in its occupied territories across Iraq and Syria into so-called cubs of the caliphate. In post-2003 Iraq, Al-Qaeda carried out hundreds of suicide attacks, 24 of which were executed by child bombers, accounting for roughly 20% of all such assaults. Child bombers became an elusive weapon in Al-Qaeda's arsenal. In the film, Welcome to Dragon's Restaurant, the principal raises numerous orphans as suicide bombers in his training camp, a recreation of that grim chapter of history. It was not the 10-year-old girl's own hands that tore her body in two, but the monsters behind her, who treated her as a disposable tool. The fourth type is the vehicle-borne bomb. Attackers drive trucks or cars loaded with hundreds of kilograms, even tons of explosives, launching suicide charges to ram the gates of US military bases, checkpoints, or patrol convoys. Alternatively, they park the vehicles at key locations, with accomplices triggering the blast remotely from afar. Sounds familiar? Exactly. The suicide truck from Sui Command and Conquer. Red alerted, vehicle-mounted devices boast ample space to hold large quantities of ordnance, including explosives and artillery rounds, delivering far greater destructive power and intimidation. On post-2003 Iraqi battlefields, this was one of the primary forms of suicide bombing, according to statistics from a US-based organization. From the overthrow of Saddam Hussein's regime to September 2006, 343 vehicle-borne suicide bombings took place in Iraq, causing heavy casualties. In 2006, 7% of Iraqi fatalities stemmed from vehicle-borne suicide bomb attacks. At this point, most people instantly think of terrorists the moment they hear the term suicide bomber. Yet the truth is far more complex than such simple labels. When drones circle endlessly over a nation's skies, checkpoints dot every street, loved Yanis vanish without explanation, and homes lie reduced to rubble, what would you expect its people to think? The United States waged 20 years of war in the Middle East, killing hundreds of thousands of people. What was the outcome? Terrorist groups multiplied, and suicide bombings grew ever more ferocious, despite crackdowns. Some claim suicide attacks stem from Islam encouraging holy war. That is nonsense. Why are there no suicide bombers in Muslim-majority Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates? Their populations have wealth, jobs, and hope. It is not the Quran that drives people to desperation, but shattered ruins, an 80% unemployment rate, and waking each day to the sound of artillery fire. Religion is merely the final straw. What weighs down the camel is already an entire mountain. Turning back to China, we can dine, stroll, and take the subway in peace, thanks to the world-class rigorous security screening system, and more importantly, a society free of the extreme conditions that turn human beings into weapons. The line "Eat Well" from Welcome to Dragon's restaurant strikes such a deep chord with countless people, for everyday civilian life is the most powerful defiance against war. May the world see less madness, and more places where people can enjoy their meals without fears.